Welcome to Tainted Trusts, where broken loyalty, hidden betrayal, and poisonous promises are brought into the light. Here, every story reveals the truth behind toxic relationships, family secrets, and the quiet path toward justice. Listen closely, because trust is fragile, but revenge remembers. My mother-in-law said she paid the hospital, but the surgery fund was gone, the receipt was fake, and our son's operation was hours away. Then a camera in the pediatric waiting room caught what she did at 3:17 a.m. The hospital camera did not blink. That is what I remember most when people ask me how the truth finally came out. Not the police officer in the lobby, not my husband Daniel standing with both hands over his mouth, not Evelyn Whittaker screaming that a grandmother could not steal from her own blood. I remember the camera, a little black dome fixed above the pediatric surgery waiting room, quiet and indifferent, watching the hallway at 3:17 in the morning while the rest of us were too tired, too scared, and too trusting to notice what was happening right in front of us. My son Milo was 6 years old. He was small for his age, with solemn brown eyes and a habit of counting ceiling tiles whenever he was frightened. He had been waiting for that operation for 11 months. 11 months of appointments, insurance calls, appeals, missed work, second opinions, prayer circles, fundraisers, and the kind of fear that rearranges a mother from the inside out. The money was supposed to be safe. That was the sentence I said so many times afterward that it stopped sounding like language. The money was supposed to be safe. It had his name on it. It had been collected in envelopes and online donations and overtime hours, and the $20 bills people slipped into my hand after church because they did not know what else to say. Then the account was empty. Then my mother-in-law said, I must have misunderstood. Then she said the hospital had already been paid. Then she said I was unstable, exhausted, careless with numbers, too emotional to manage anything important. And my husband believed silence was the same as neutrality. That silence nearly cost us our marriage. It almost cost our son his operation date. Evelyn had always been a woman who entered rooms like she owned the furniture. She wore pearls to grocery stores, called waitresses sweetheart in a tone that made them stand straighter, and had a family voice she used in public, warm, trembling, sacrificial, that made strangers think she was the kind of mother who had only ever given. Daniel had been trained by that voice since childhood. When Evelyn cried, he softened. When Evelyn accused, he apologized. When Evelyn said family, everyone was expected to stop asking questions. I knew she disliked me. I did not know. She hated the fact that Milo loved me more than he feared her. I did not know she had been telling people that I was using our son's diagnosis to get attention. I did not know she had opened an account at a credit union under the name Sunflower Outreach and moved every donation she could reach into it while smiling at bake sales and thanking people for loving her grandson. Most of all, I did not know that on the night before Milo's operation, while he slept with a stuffed fox under his chin, Evelyn walked into the hospital waiting room and handed a man in a maintenance jacket the envelope that was supposed to save him. She thought grief made people blind. She thought fear made mothers easy to shame. She thought Daniel would choose peace over truth, the way he always had. But hospitals keep records, mothers keep receipts, and cameras, thank God, do not care who cries first. What people saw later was a single clip, 38 seconds long. What I lived before that clip was a year of being trained to doubt my own instincts. That is the cruelest part of people like Evelyn. They do not begin by stealing money. They begin by making you feel rude for noticing the drawer is open. We named the fund after Milo because I wanted every dollar to feel less like charity and more like a promise. Milo's Bright Morning Fund. Daniel thought the name was too sentimental. He said people responded better to clear facts: procedure date, estimated cost, insurance gap, travel, medication, recovery equipment. I knew he was right in the practical sense, but I also knew people did not give only to numbers. They gave to a face, a child, a future they could picture. So I chose a photo of Milo sitting on our back steps in his dinosaur sweatshirt, holding a paper sun he had made in kindergarten. His smile was crooked because he had lost a tooth the week before. Under the photo, I wrote that our son was brave, funny, stubborn, and tired of hospital rooms. I wrote that we were not asking for pity. We were asking for a bridge. The first donation was from my sister Anna. $50 and a message that said, "Get that boy home healthy." Then came 20 from Daniel's coworker, 100 from my old supervisor, $12 from Mrs. Lennox across the street who lived on a pension and insisted it was for popsicles after surgery. People shared the link. The church hosted a pancake breakfast. My students, parents from the year before sent gift cards for gas and meals. A local mechanic donated the raffle prize, and Daniel's union passed around a coffee can. Evelyn arrived 2 weeks into the fundraising with a silver binder. "I made categories," she said, setting it on our kitchen table as if she had been appointed treasurer by God. People feel safer when a mature adult is involved. I was stirring soup. Milo was at the table, arranging crackers by size. Daniel stood by the sink, watching his mother without meeting my eyes. "We have it under control," I said. Evelyn smiled at Milo. "Of course you do, Grace. I'm only helping. A family crisis should not fall on one young mother's shoulders." I was 37. Daniel cleared his throat. "Maybe Mom can track the cash donations, just so nothing gets lost." I heard the trap in the word maybe. In Daniel's family, maybe meant the decision had already been made, and anyone resisting it would be called difficult. I looked at my husband. He looked tired. He had been working extra shifts, sleeping 4 hours a night, living on vending machine coffee and guilt. He loved Milo. I never doubted that. But Daniel handled pressure by handing pieces of it to the loudest person in the room, and Evelyn had spent his entire life being loud in a velvet glove. "Cash only," I said, "and every donation gets written down twice, once in your binder, once in mine." Evelyn touched her pearls. "Do you think I would steal from my grandson?" The kitchen went still. Milo looked up from his crackers, because the air had changed. "That is not what I said," I replied. "No," Evelyn said, wounded already, "but it is what you meant." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "Grace, come on." That was the first small surrender. Not the missing money, not the forged receipt. That sentence. "Grace, come on." It told Evelyn which door was unlocked. She took the binder home that night. I let her. I have forgiven myself for many things since then, but not that. That night I lay awake listening to Daniel breathe and replayed her question. "Do you think I would steal from my grandson?" I had answered the accusation instead of the warning inside it. An innocent person would have said, of course, "Show me your system too." Evelyn had reached for injury before I had even touched the truth. Evelyn's first rule was that appearances were a form of morality. If a family looked whole, then it was whole. If a son called his mother every Sunday, then the mother had done nothing wrong enough to be named. If a grandmother stood in front of a church fellowship hall with flour on her cheek and tears in her eyes, thanking everyone for helping little Milo, then no one was allowed to ask why that same grandmother had once called him fragile like it was an insult. She had rules for everything. Children should not be allowed to dictate a household. Wives should not correct husbands in public. Illness should be handled with dignity, which usually meant quietly, and never in a way that made Evelyn uncomfortable. Before Milo got sick, she had made motherhood feel like an examination I had not studied for. She criticized the way I packed his lunch, the way I let him wear soft pants to family dinners, the way I did not force hugs when he turned his shoulder into my side and hid his face from relatives. "You coddle him," she told me once while Daniel carved a roast in her dining room. "He gets overwhelmed," I said. "He gets indulged." Daniel froze with the knife in his hand. His sister Bethany looked down at her plate. Evelyn's husband had died years before, but his chair still sat at the head of the table, empty and polished like a warning. I waited for Daniel to say something. He said, "Mom, pass the potatoes." After Milo's diagnosis and the operation plan, Evelyn became softer in public and sharper in private. At fundraisers, she kissed his hair. At our house, she sighed when he needed quiet. She told people she worried about me, that I was too anxious, that I was making Milo anxious by treating him like glass. "She's under so much strain," I heard her tell a woman from church in the bathroom hallway during the pancake breakfast. "Sometimes I think Grace forgets Daniel is suffering too." I stood in the stall with one hand over my mouth. That was how Evelyn worked. She did not say I was a bad mother. She said she was worried. She did not say I was selfish. She said Daniel was forgotten. She did not say she should control the money. She said the family needed structure. By late June, she had more access than she should have had. She collected cash envelopes after church. She deposited checks people wrote to Daniel because they trusted the Whitaker name. She helped set up the hospital payment folder, The one with Milo's birth certificate copy, insurance forms, pre-authorization letters, and the cashier's check request. I kept digital records. Evelyn kept paper ones. Old-fashioned is safer, she said. I should have laughed. Instead, I was grateful for any help that let me sleep an extra hour or sit beside Milo during a blood draw instead of making another phone call. That is what people forget about betrayal. It rarely enters through a locked door. It carries groceries. It offers to babysit. It says, "Sit down, honey, you look exhausted." The week before surgery, Evelyn brought over a casserole and a sealed envelope. "Final deposit confirmation," she said. I picked it up from the hospital office while I was nearby. "Why did they give it to you?" I asked. She tilted her head. "Because I said I was Milo's grandmother." Daniel smiled weakly, like that explained everything. I took the envelope. It felt too light. The next morning, she sent Daniel a photo of the binder beside a cup of tea, captioned, "Handling what others are too overwhelmed to handle." He showed it to me like it was sweet. I looked at the neat columns in her handwriting and felt, for one quick second, that I was watching someone rehearse a story before the crime was complete. Milo's blue backpack had dinosaurs on it and one zipper that always stuck at the corner. He insisted on carrying it to every appointment, even when it held nothing but his stuffed fox, 3 stickers, and the green plastic car he called his lucky car. The night before we left for the hospital, I packed it myself on the living room floor while Milo slept, and Daniel loaded our suitcase into the car. Pajamas, toothbrush, headphones, fox, green car. The visual schedule laminated and clipped to a ring. A small notebook where nurses could write down anything Milo needed in simple words so I could show him without overwhelming him. Then the payment folder. The folder was red, not blue, because red meant important in our house. It contained every document I had fought to gather. Insurance approval, secondary appeal notes, the grant letter from the Children's Foundation, and the cashier's check receipt for the remaining balance. I opened the envelope Evelyn had brought. Inside was a receipt, printed on hospital letterhead. "Patient responsibility, paid in full." I stared at it for a long time. There were small things wrong with it, but I did not yet know they were wrong. The font looked slightly thinner. The account number ended in 19, and I thought ours ended in 91, but I was tired and numbers had blurred together for months. The signature at the bottom was a scrawl I could not read. "Everything okay?" Daniel asked from the doorway. "I think so." He leaned against the frame. Mom said she waited an hour at billing to get that. She was proud of herself. Of course she was. I slid the receipt into the folder and put the folder inside Milo's backpack. Daniel came to sit beside me. For a moment, we were just 2 parents on the carpet surrounded by supplies, both pretending we were not terrified. He touched the stuffed fox and smiled. "Remember when he used to call it Frog? He still does when he's sleepy." Daniel's face changed, softened. He reached for my hand. "We're going to get through tomorrow," he said. I wanted to believe him so badly that I let myself lean against his shoulder. At 6 the next morning, Evelyn arrived wearing a navy dress and perfume too sweet for a hospital. She hugged Daniel first, then Milo, then me last. Her arms were stiff around my shoulders. "I prayed all night," she whispered. "God told me this family needs unity." That was Evelyn's way of saying she expected obedience. We drove in 2 cars. Daniel and I rode with Milo. Evelyn followed us, calling Daniel 3 times before we reached the highway to ask if we had remembered the backpack, the folder, the insurance card. By registration, Milo was already pale with stress. He counted floor tiles while I rubbed circles on his back. A volunteer brought him a sticker. Daniel carried the blue backpack. At the desk, the woman scanned our paperwork and smiled until she opened the payment tab. Then she stopped smiling. "I'm sorry," she said. "I need to call billing." I felt Daniel's hand tighten on the backpack strap. Evelyn stepped forward before I could speak. "There must be a mistake," she said, loud enough for the waiting room to hear. "We paid." The woman kept her professional face on. "I'm sure we can sort it out," but her eyes had already told me. Something was wrong. I still wonder what would have happened if I had trusted that feeling. If I had driven back home, opened every account, called the hospital before sunrise, demanded that Daniel watch while I verified each page. But motherhood under crisis teaches you to prioritize the next breath, the next form, the next cup of apple juice. Suspicion felt like a luxury. Billing called us into a small consultation room with a box of tissues on the table. I have learned to hate rooms with tissues already waiting. They are never used for good news. The walls were painted a soft green that tried too hard to be calming, and there was a poster about patient rights crooked above a plastic chair. Milo sat in my lap with his headphones on, watching the same cartoon loop on my phone. Daniel stood behind me. Evelyn sat with her purse in both hands like a woman attending a funeral she had organized. A billing coordinator named Ms. Alvarez came in with 2 folders. "I want to be clear," she said gently. "The surgical team is still reviewing options. We are not canceling anything at this moment, but the account shows the required patient balance has not been paid." My mouth went dry. Daniel said, "We have a receipt." I pulled the red folder from Milo's backpack and handed over the paper. Ms. Alvarez looked at it once, then again. Her expression did not change much, but the air did. "Where did you receive this?" she asked. "My mother picked it up," Daniel said. Evelyn lifted her chin. "From your billing office." Ms. Alvarez looked at her. "Which window?" "The main one. We do not issue receipts in this format from the main window." Evelyn blinked once. "That is hospital letterhead," she said. "It resembles hospital letterhead," Ms. Alvarez replied. I heard my heartbeat in my ears. "How much is missing?" I asked. She checked the folder. $28,460. Daniel made a sound like he had been punched. Evelyn put a hand to her mouth. "Grace, just my name." One word, breathed with enough horror to turn every face toward me. I looked at her. "What? You said you transferred it." "No, I didn't. You told me the online fund was empty because you had moved everything for payment." "No, Evelyn, I never said that." She stood slowly, eyes wet already, performance rising through her like heat. "Then where is it?" Daniel looked at me. That look was the first fracture that mattered. Not accusation. Not yet. But fear searching for somewhere to land, and his mother pointing at me with tears in her eyes. I opened the fundraising app on my phone with shaking hands. The balance showed 0. The final transfer showed an account I did not recognize, authorized 3 days earlier. Sunflower Outreach Credit Union. "I didn't do this," I said. Evelyn whispered, "Oh my God." Ms. Alvarez asked if we needed hospital social work. Daniel asked if the operation could still proceed. I kept staring at the transfer record while Milo's cartoon played too brightly in my lap. 3 days earlier, I had been at home with Milo after his pre-op blood work. Daniel had been working. Evelyn had come by to bring dinner, and my laptop had been open on the kitchen table. I looked up. Evelyn was crying into a tissue. Daniel was watching me instead of her. That was when I understood how quickly a lie could become a room if the right person built the walls. Later, I would learn that Evelyn had practiced that moment. Bethany admitted it in her statement. Their mother had said if anything went wrong, the key was to react first and react like the victim. "People believe the person who looks wounded," she told her daughter. "They do not look closely at the one who is bleeding loudly." The hospital did not cancel the operation that day. That was the mercy that kept me from breaking in the hallway. Ms. Alvarez found a temporary charity hold, a 72-hour review that allowed the surgical slot to remain active while we investigated the payment problem. She told us not to panic, which was the kind of instruction only calm people give. I had been panicking since the word missing. We were moved to a family waiting room while the team discussed options. Milo fell asleep in a recliner, exhausted from the fluorescent lights and adult voices. I covered him with his dinosaur blanket and sat beside him, one hand on his ankle so he would know I was there if he woke. Daniel paced. Evelyn made phone calls in the hallway. I could hear pieces through the door. "No, we don't know yet." "Yes," the mother handled most of it. "Please pray. Daniel is devastated." Each sentence had the shape of concern and the function of poison. By noon, half the church knew there was a problem with the fund. By 2, my sister called asking why Evelyn had told Mrs. Lennox that I might have clicked on a scam link. By 4, Daniel had stopped pacing and started sitting very still. I showed him the transfer record. "I didn't authorize it," I said. "It used your login. My laptop remembers passwords." He closed his eyes. "Grace, don't say my name like that. I'm not accusing you." "No, you're just standing near the accusation so you don't have to choose." His face tightened. "My mom is scared too." "Your mom is telling everyone I lost our son's surgery money. She's emotional. She is strategic." He flinched. Evelyn had trained him to hear truth about her as cruelty. That evening, Nurse Harper came in with Milo's medication schedule. She was in her 50s, with silver hair pulled into a tight bun and the kind of no-nonsense kindness that made me want to cry whenever she called me honey. She glanced at the receipt on the side table. "Where did you get that?" she asked. I handed it to her. She read it once, then rubbed the paper between her fingers. "This is too clean," she said. "What does that mean?" Daniel asked. "Real billing receipts have processing marks, sometimes ugly ones. This looks like someone printed a template." Evelyn stepped into the room at exactly the wrong moment. "Are we interrogating nurses now?" Nurse Harper did not look impressed. "No, ma'am, I'm noticing paper." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. I watched that exchange closely. For the first time all day, Evelyn had reacted before choosing her face. Nurse Harper left and returned 10 minutes later with Ms. Alvarez. They asked to make a copy of the receipt. Evelyn objected, saying we did not need more bureaucracy while Milo was suffering. Milo slept through it all. His small hand rested open on the blanket. I stared at it and felt something harden in me. Fear had made me apologetic for months. Fear of doctors, bills, delays, making the wrong choice, asking for too much help. Fear had kept me polite, while Evelyn built her little throne in our emergency. But anger is sometimes fear that has finally found its spine. When Ms. Alvarez returned the receipt, I put it back in the red folder. Then I took a photo of it. Then I took a photo of Evelyn watching me take a photo. Nurse Harper also noticed something else. The signature at the bottom used the name of a billing supervisor who had retired 9 months earlier. She did not say that in front of Evelyn. She only tucked the copy under her arm and asked me whether I trusted my memory. When I said I did not know anymore, she said, "Then borrow mine until yours comes back." Daniel's quiet had always seemed gentle before. When we were dating, I thought his silence meant steadiness. He listened more than he spoke. He did not interrupt. He let my big feelings fill rooms without trying to correct them. After a childhood with a father who yelled first and regretted later, Daniel's calm felt like shelter. I did not understand then that some silences are not shelter. Some are locked doors. That night after Milo was settled in his pre-op room and Evelyn had gone home to gather herself, Daniel and I sat in the parent alcove by the window. The city lights blurred beyond the glass. Machines beeped softly. Somewhere down the hall, a child laughed and then coughed. "We need to file a police report," I said. Daniel rubbed both hands over his face. "Can we wait until after the surgery? The money is missing now." "I know. Someone moved it to an account I don't know." "I know. And your mother is telling people I did it." He leaned back, eyes closed. "Grace, she is scared." I turned to him slowly. "So am I." He did not answer. "Milo is the one in the bed, Daniel. Not Evelyn, Milo." His jaw worked. "I'm trying to keep everyone from falling apart." "No, you are trying to keep your mother from being angry." His eyes opened. There it was again. The flinch. The small boy inside the grown man hearing forbidden words. "You don't know what she's been through," he said. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because I knew every chapter of Evelyn's suffering. She had narrated it at every birthday, every holiday, every dinner where she wanted obedience. Her widowhood, her sacrifices, her children's ingratitude, her loneliness, her blood pressure, her nerves, her fear that Daniel had forgotten who raised him. "I know exactly what she has been through," I said. "I just don't think it gives her ownership of our son." Daniel stood. That was his move when truth got too close. He stood. He found a task. He refilled water, checked the car, called work, walked the hallway, anything but stay. "I'm getting coffee," he said. "Of course you are." He stopped at the door. For 1 second, I thought he might come back. "Sit down. Choose the hard room." He left. I sat beside Milo's bed and watched him sleep. His mouth was slightly open. The stuffed fox was tucked under his arm. He looked younger than 6 and older than any child should have to be. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You should be ashamed. That money was for your baby." Then another. "Evelyn says Daniel is devastated. How could you?" Then a third from someone at church. I had fed casseroles to after her hip surgery. "If you need help with addiction or spending, confess before it ruins your family." I turned the phone face down. My hands were shaking, but not from guilt. Daniel came back 20 minutes later with coffee for himself and none for me. He noticed only after he sat down. "I forgot," he said. I looked at him. For a moment, all the missing money, all the false receipts, all of Evelyn's whispers narrowed into that paper cup in his hand. "I know," I said. He looked away. That was the night I stopped expecting rescue from the person sleeping beside me. I did not stop loving Daniel. Love does not turn off because betrayal turns on. But something inside me stepped back from him and began making plans without asking whether he approved. A mother cannot wait for a husband to become brave. The church basement smelled like pancakes, coffee, and judgment. It had been the heart of Milo's fundraising. Every Saturday for a month, people had stood behind folding tables flipping pancakes, selling raffle tickets, and telling me not to worry because God loved children. Now those same tables had become a courtroom without a judge. Evelyn called the meeting. She did not call it that, of course. She called it a prayer gathering. She said people were confused and hurting and needed clarity. She said Daniel could not bear more stress, so she would speak on behalf of the family. I found out because Anna sent me a screenshot of the church Facebook post. Urgent prayer and accountability meeting for Milo's Bright Morning Fund. Accountability. I drove there while Daniel stayed at the hospital with Milo. He begged me not to go. Let it cool down, he said. Your mother lit the fire. Grace, please. I am done being tried in rooms. I'm not allowed to enter. When I walked into the basement, conversation died so quickly I could hear the refrigerator humming behind the coffee urns. Evelyn stood at the front with her silver binder open. Bethany sat beside her, red-eyed and loyal. Several women from church clustered near the wall, holding styrofoam cups like shields. Evelyn's face changed when she saw me. Not fear, calculation. Grace, she said, soft and wounded. This is not a good time. For whom? A few people shifted. I walked to the front and placed my own binder on the table. It was not silver. It was cheap black plastic, split at one corner from being opened too often. I brought records, I said. Evelyn touched her throat. We are not here to attack anyone. That is convenient, since you already did it while I was at my son's hospital bed. Bethany stood. Don't speak to Mom like that. I looked at her. Bethany, who had not donated $1 but had posted photos of Milo with captions about family strength. Bethany, who borrowed money from Daniel every winter and never called it borrowing. This does not concern you, I said. It concerns all of us if you stole from a child. There it was. The word finally spoken by someone too foolish to dress it up. I opened my binder. Here are the donation records. Here are screenshots of every online transfer. Here is the account the money went into. Sunflower Outreach Credit Union. I did not open it. I did not authorize it. I have asked the bank for security logs. Evelyn smiled sadly. A password can be shared, Grace. My laptop was accessed from my kitchen on Tuesday at 5:42 p.m. You were there. I brought dinner to help you and stayed alone at the table while I gave Milo a bath. That is a disgusting implication. No, I said. A disgusting implication is telling grieving people I stole from my son. The basement went still. Mrs. Lennox began to cry quietly into a napkin. Then Pastor Reed, a careful man who had spent years avoiding conflict by calling it patience, cleared his throat. Perhaps we should wait for official answers. Evelyn turned to him sharply. Pastor, this family needs support. No, he said, surprising us all. This family needs truth. For the first time, Evelyn had no immediate response. My phone buzzed. A message from Nurse Harper. Call me when you can. I found something on the receipt. I closed my binder. Keep your meeting, I told Evelyn. I have evidence to collect. Then I walked out, while everyone watched her instead of me. Outside, the evening air felt wet and metallic. I sat in my car with both hands on the wheel and shook so hard the keys rattled against my knee. I was not fearless. I was humiliated, furious, and afraid that the next phone call would be the hospital saying time had run out. Courage, I learned, often looks like driving while crying. Nurse Harper met me in the family lounge with 2 cups of terrible hospital coffee. Drink, she said, handing one over. I don't think my body can handle caffeine. It can handle whatever it needs to handle until your boy is safe. I drank. She led me to a small staff office near the nurse's station. Ms. Alvarez was there with the copied receipt on the desk. A hospital compliance officer joined us by phone. The word compliance made my stomach clench, but Nurse Harper gave me a look that said sit down, breathe, listen. Ms. Alvarez pointed to the receipt date. June 21st, she said. Yes, Milo's account was moved into surgical hold on June 20th. After that, the receipt system automatically includes the hold code here. She tapped the lower corner. This one doesn't. So it's fake. We believe it was created using an older billing template. How would someone get that? The compliance officer answered through the speaker. Old PDFs circulate. Former employees, volunteers. Sometimes people download forms from patient portals and alter them badly. Nurse Harper folded her arms. Or someone had help from a person who knew what a receipt should look like, but not enough to make it current. I thought of the man in the maintenance jacket I had seen the previous evening in the hallway, speaking briefly with Evelyn near the vending machines. Young, beard, cap low. Familiar in a way I could not place. Can the hospital check who came to billing that day? I asked. Ms. Alvarez hesitated. We can review visitor logs, but billing is public-facing. Cameras cover the lobby and main halls, not every desk. Cameras. The word landed in me like a match. Do they cover the family waiting room? Nurse Harper's eyes sharpened. Why? My son's backpack was in there yesterday morning. The red folder. Evelyn kept asking whether we had it. Then the receipt was in the folder. I packed the folder at home, but I didn't check every page after registration. Could someone have swapped something? Ms. Alvarez was already writing. Which waiting room? Pediatric surgery. Near registration. What time? We arrived at 6:40. The desk called billing at 7:05. Evelyn left to park the car after we checked in, but she came back before the call. I stopped. Evelyn had not parked the car. She had valet parked because she hated hospital garages. I had watched the attendant take her keys. So where had she gone? Nurse Harper saw my face change. What? She lied, I said. She said she had to park, she didn't. The compliance officer asked for a formal request. Ms. Alvarez said security could review internal footage if there was a suspected theft or document tampering related to patient care. Nurse Harper said 3 words that made me love her forever. I'll walk you. Security was on the ground floor beside the chapel. The man behind the desk, Officer Walsh, listened without interrupting. He took the times. He took the location. He took my shaking explanation and turned it into a report number. We may not be able to release footage directly to you, he said, but we can confirm whether there's activity relevant to the case and preserve it for law enforcement. Law enforcement. Until that moment, part of me had still been thinking like a daughter-in-law trying to survive family drama. Officer Walsh's report number made it something else. A crime. I walked back upstairs with Nurse Harper. Outside Milo's room, Daniel was speaking quietly with Evelyn. When Evelyn saw me, she smiled. It was the smile of someone who thought the hallway still belonged to her. It didn't. Before I reached Milo's room, Nurse Harper stopped me with one hand on my elbow. When this gets ugly, she said, and it will, remember something. You are not making it ugly by naming it. It was already ugly. You are only turning on the light. I carried that sentence like medicine. Officer Walsh came up at 9:30 that night. Milo was asleep. Daniel was in the chair beside his bed, elbows on knees, staring at nothing. Evelyn had finally gone to the cafeteria after telling 3 nurses that she had low blood sugar. I stood in the hallway because I could not sit still without feeling my body vibrate apart. Officer Walsh asked to speak privately. Daniel looked up. About what? The report, I said. What report? I looked at my husband and realized how much of our marriage had become me doing hard things while he discovered them later and called them sudden. I asked security to review footage. His face tightened. Grace. No, I held up a hand. Not now. Officer Walsh led us to a small consultation room. Ms. Alvarez was already there. So was Nurse Harper, standing by the wall like a guard dog in scrubs. We reviewed the pediatric surgery waiting room camera, Officer Walsh said. Daniel sat down slowly. Can we see it? I asked. I can show you still frames. The full video will be preserved. He placed a tablet on the table. The first still showed the waiting room at 6:51. Milo sat between me and Daniel, headphones on. The blue backpack was at Daniel's feet. The second showed Evelyn entering from the hallway at 6:58. Daniel and I were at the registration desk. Milo sat with a volunteer, watching a tablet. Evelyn looked directly at the backpack. The third still showed her bending beside it. Daniel whispered, no. The fourth showed her removing the red folder. The fifth showed her opening her purse. The sixth showed paper moving from purse to folder. My body went cold. She swapped it, I said. Officer Walsh nodded once. It appears so. Daniel leaned back as if the air had left him. Maybe she was checking. Nurse Harper said, Daniel, just his name, but it landed harder than a lecture. He stared at the screen. The next still showed Evelyn walking out of frame with a white envelope in her hand. "Where did she go?" I asked. Officer Walsh swiped again. "Hallway camera. Evelyn at 7:02 a.m. near the service corridor by vending." A man in a maintenance jacket approached. He was not hospital maintenance. The badge clipped to his pocket was blank. He took the envelope. Daniel stood so abruptly the chair scraped. "I know him," he said. I looked at him. "That's Ryan," he said. "Bethany's ex. He used to work at a print shop." A print shop. The fake receipt. The hospital template. The maintenance jacket. For a moment nobody spoke. Then the consultation room door opened. Evelyn stood there holding a cup of tea. She looked at the tablet. She looked at Daniel. Then, astonishingly, she smiled. "Whatever Grace thinks she has found," she said, "I can explain." Daniel turned toward her. I had waited years to see what would happen if his mother lied. While Proof stood in the room with us. He did not yell. He did not move toward her. He did not soften. He only said, very quietly, "Then explain why you touched my son's surgery folder." Evelyn's smile flickered, not vanished. Flickered. That was when I knew she still believed she could win. Evelyn set the tea down with a small click. She looked from Daniel to me, then to the officer, searching for the softest target. For once, there wasn't one. The room had rearranged itself around Proof. Not emotion, not reputation, not who had suffered longest. Proof. And Evelyn, who had survived on atmosphere, suddenly had to breathe facts. Ryan Keller was found in the parking garage, smoking beside a stairwell. He did not run when hospital security approached him. Men like Ryan rarely run at first. They believe confusion is protection. He had the maintenance jacket folded over one arm and an expression of practiced boredom that disappeared when Officer Walsh said the word police. I did not witness the first conversation. I was upstairs with Milo, listening to Evelyn cry in the hallway and Daniel say nothing. But Officer Walsh told us enough later, and the police report filled in the rest. Ryan had printed the receipt at Bethany's apartment. Evelyn had given him the hospital logo from an old billing PDF. The white envelope contained the real hospital correspondence, proof that the payment had not been made, plus the charity hold approval Ms. Alvarez had arranged the night before. Evelyn had needed those papers gone because they made her fake receipt weaker. Ryan claimed he thought it was family paperwork. Nobody believed him. The larger theft took another day to uncover. Sunflower Outreach Credit Union was not a charity. It was a business account opened 6 weeks earlier with Evelyn listed as organizer and Bethany as authorized user. The stated purpose was community medical assistance. The address was a mailbox rental behind a nail salon. Every transfer from Milo's Bright Morning Fund had been routed there in 3 pieces. 9,000, 11,000, 8,460. The cash donations were worse. They had no clean trail, only Evelyn's silver binder and my black one showing different totals. Her pages had been rewritten. Mine had coffee stains, crossed out math, and the ugly honesty of records kept by someone too tired to forge them. At noon the next day, Bethany arrived at the hospital. She was Evelyn's daughter in every way that mattered. Polished, wounded on demand, always ready to convert inconvenience into victimhood. But when she stepped out of the elevator, she looked frightened. Not angry, frightened. "Where's Mom?" she asked Daniel. "Talking to police." Bethany's face lost color. I stood beside Milo's door. "You knew." Her eyes snapped to mine. "I didn't know it was for the surgery." Daniel looked at her. "What did you think it was for?" he asked. Bethany began to cry. Real tears, maybe. It was hard to tell in that family. Mom said Grace was exaggerating the cost. She said the fund had extra money, and you wouldn't mind helping me if you knew. Helping you with what? Bethany pressed both hands to her stomach. I thought of the way Evelyn had said family crisis should not fall on one young mother's shoulders. I thought of the maintenance jacket, the print shop, the account. Bethany whispered, "The judgment." Daniel did not move. "What judgment?" She looked at him like a child caught stealing from a purse. "I borrowed from work. I was going to put it back. They found out. Mom said if I paid quickly, they might not press charges." There it was. The second operation Evelyn had been funding. Not to save a child, to save a daughter from consequences. Daniel sat down in the hallway chair. Bethany reached toward him. "Danny." He flinched away. That flinch was the first honest thing his body had said in days. Bethany's confession did not make me pity her. Not then. All I could see was Milo counting tiles while adults traded his safety like a loan. Bethany had been frightened of consequences. Evelyn had been frightened of losing control. Daniel had been frightened of conflict. I had been frightened of everything except the one thing that mattered, stopping them. The police officer who took my statement had kind eyes and a voice that never rose. Her name was Detective Monroe. She arrived with a small recorder, a legal pad, and the calm of someone who had spent years watching families discover what they were capable of doing to one another. She asked questions in order. Who had access to the fundraiser? Who knew the passwords? When had Evelyn been alone with my laptop? What donations had been made in cash? Did I have names, amounts, screenshots? I had all of it. That surprised her, I think. It surprised Daniel more. He sat beside me during the statement, pale and silent, while I opened folder after folder on my laptop. Donation list, bank records, text messages, photos of envelopes, screenshots of Evelyn's public thank yous, my notes from every fundraiser, dated and ugly and exact. You kept everything, Daniel said softly. I had to. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the shame reach him in a new place. Not the shame of discovering his mother had stolen. The shame of realizing his wife had been living like evidence might be needed while he kept asking for peace. Detective Monroe subpoenaed the Sunflower account. By evening, the first records came back. The money had moved fast. Bethany's workplace restitution, $14,000. A credit card payment, $3,200. A cashier's check to Ryan Keller, $1,750. Cash withdrawals, $6,000. And one transaction that made the detective pause. A deposit at a jewelry store. Daniel stared at the page. Jewelry. I knew before anyone said it. Evelyn had been wearing a new sapphire ring for 2 weeks. She told everyone it had belonged to her mother and that she had found it in an old drawer while praying for Milo. At the pancake breakfast, Mrs. Lennox had admired it, and Evelyn had cried because heirlooms matter when children are in danger. The deposit was dated the same day. Detective Monroe circled it. Daniel stood and walked to the window. The room held him in a way I could not. He was not crying. Daniel rarely cried. He folded inward. His shoulders curved, his hands went into his pockets, and his face emptied like a house after movers leave. I made Grace apologize for asking about the binder, he said. No one answered. I told her Mom was trying. Still no one answered. He turned around. Did she know it might delay the surgery? Detective Monroe's expression remained neutral. That will be part of the investigation. But we all knew. Evelyn had swapped the documents inside the hospital. She knew exactly what the money was for. She knew the operation date, the amount, the deadline, the fear. She had used our fear as cover. Later that night, after Milo was asleep, Daniel found me in the chapel. I am not religious in the way Evelyn pretended to be. But hospitals make atheists negotiate and believers go quiet. I sat in the back row beneath a small stained glass window, hands folded around nothing. Daniel sat beside me. I don't know how to be the person you need right now, he said. I looked straight ahead. Start by not asking me to comfort you about what your mother did to us. He nodded once. A minute passed. Then he said, okay. For once he stayed. I did not tell Daniel it was all right, because it was not. I did not tell him he was different from her, because that was not mine to prove for him. I let the chapel's silence do what my pleading had never done. It made him sit with himself without a job, without a defense, without his mother's voice filling the room. Bethany called me from a diner off route, 2 days, after Milo's operation was rescheduled. I almost did not answer. She had spent years treating me like a temporary problem Daniel would eventually outgrow. She borrowed money and called it family help. She repeated Evelyn's insults with softer language. When Milo was diagnosed, she sent one text with a heart emoji and then asked Daniel if we could still host Thanksgiving because change was hard on Mom. But something in the voicemail made me drive there. Please, I need to tell someone before she makes me lie again. The diner had cracked red booths and a waitress who refilled coffee without asking. Bethany sat in the back, wearing sunglasses indoors, both hands wrapped around a mug. She looked smaller without Evelyn beside her. I didn't know at first, she said before I sat down. That is a weak beginning. She flinched. I deserve that. Yes. I sat anyway. Bethany told me the rest in pieces. She had stolen from the dental office where she worked because her boyfriend had gambling debt. Then she had lied to Evelyn, saying it was a payroll mistake and she would go to jail if she did not pay immediately. Evelyn had not asked many questions. Evelyn preferred crises where she could be savior and victim at once. She said Daniel owed us, Bethany said. She said he had spent his whole adult life letting you pull him away. Milo pulled him away. No, you, the marriage, the house, the normal life. I laughed once bitterly. How dare we? Bethany wiped her nose with a napkin. Mom said the hospital would work with you. That kids' hospitals don't let children suffer over money. She gambled on charity while stealing charity. Bethany looked at the table. Yes. Why call me? She reached into her purse and removed a small flash drive. I recorded her. The waitress passed. We both went silent until she left. When? I asked. Yesterday. She came to my apartment and told me if police asked, I had to say you knew about Sunflower, that you planned to move the money into it for tax reasons. I stared at her. Bethany pushed the flash drive toward me. I can't do it anymore. Because you're sorry. Her mouth trembled. Because I'm scared. At least that's honest. She nodded, tears slipping down behind the sunglasses. The recording was bad audio, muffled by Bethany's purse, but Evelyn's voice was unmistakable. Grace is emotional. People already believe that. Daniel will not survive choosing her over me. He never has. Then Bethany whispering, what about Milo? And Evelyn, cold as polished stone. Milo will have his surgery. Everyone is so dramatic. The point is keeping this family intact. This family, not my son, not his body, not his terror, his schedule, his little dinosaur backpack. This family, which to Evelyn had always meant herself. I took the flash drive. Bethany wiped her face. Are you going to give it to the detective? Yes. She nodded like she had expected that. Grace. I stood. I'm sorry. I looked at my sister-in-law, who had chosen fear only after greed failed. I believe you, I said. That does not make it forgiveness. Then I left her with the coffee going cold. In the parking lot, I listened once more before sending it to Detective Monroe. Evelyn's voice came through the cheap speaker, thin and cruel. Not hysterical. Not desperate. Controlled. That control mattered. It was the sound of a woman who understood exactly what she was doing and had simply miscalculated which people would remain afraid of her. Daniel watched the hospital footage 3 times. Not because he needed to see it 3 times to understand. Because the first time, his mind rejected it. The second time, his childhood argued with it. The third time, the man he was supposed to be finally stopped looking away. We sat in Detective Monroe's office with the blinds half closed. Evelyn had been asked not to contact us, which meant she had called Daniel 17 times from blocked numbers, left 6 voicemails, and sent a message through Pastor Reed saying a son who abandons his mother during persecution will answer to God. Daniel had not responded. That silence was different from the old one. The old silence protected Evelyn. This one protected Milo. On the screen, Evelyn entered the waiting room. She smiled at the volunteer. She waited until Daniel and I were turned away. Then she bent, opened the backpack, removed the folder, swapped the papers, and walked out with the real envelope held flat against her purse. Daniel's face did not move. Detective Monroe paused the video at the frame, where Evelyn handed Ryan the envelope. Do you want a break? She asked. No, Daniel said. His voice sounded unfamiliar. She played Bethany's recording next. Grace is emotional. People already believe that. Daniel closed his eyes. He listened to his mother explain him with perfect confidence. Daniel will not survive choosing her over me. He never has. That sentence did what years of my pleading could not. It showed him his cage in his mother's own voice. When the recording ended, he stood and asked where the restroom was. I thought he was leaving the room to avoid feeling, but he came back 5 minutes later, face washed, eyes red, shoulders squared. I want to make a statement, he said. Detective Monroe opened a new file. Daniel spoke for 47 minutes. He told her about the binder, the password, the pressure. He told her about the way Evelyn had made herself treasurer, the way she collected envelopes, the way she told church members I was unstable. He did not defend her. He did not soften the edges. When he did not know something, he said he did not know. Then he said the hardest part. I enabled her. Detective Monroe looked up. Daniel kept going. Not legally maybe, but in my house, in my marriage. I made it easier for her to hurt my wife, because I kept treating Grace's alarm like conflict and my mother's tears like evidence. I stared at him. That was not an apology yet. It was better. It was the truth before the apology. When we left the station, Evelyn was waiting in the parking lot. She had no pearls on, Her hair was unbrushed. She looked older but not smaller. Evelyn never became smaller. She only changed costumes. "Daniel," she said, stepping toward him. "Baby, thank God." He stopped 10 feet from her. "Do not call him baby," I thought, but did not say. She reached out. "They are twisting this. Grace has always hated that you love me." Daniel looked at his mother for a long time. Then he said, "You stole from my son." Evelyn's mouth opened. "You stole from Milo," he said again. "And you tried to make me blame his mother." Her face hardened. There she was. No tears, no tremble, just the woman underneath. "After everything I sacrificed for you," she said. Daniel nodded once, like he had finally heard the real language. "I'm done paying with my family." He walked past her. This time, I followed him. We did not speak during the drive home. Daniel kept both hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead, while the city passed in wet streaks of light. At a red light, he whispered, almost to himself, "She knew I would doubt you." I did not comfort him. Some realizations should hurt enough to leave a scar. Milo's operation happened on a Thursday morning, under a sky so clear it felt offensive. Children should not be wheeled toward operating rooms beneath cheerful weather. The world should have the decency to darken. Instead, sunlight poured through the hospital windows and turned the hallway floors gold, while I walked beside my son's bed with one hand on his blanket and the other clenched around the stuffed fox. The charity hold became a permanent grant after Ms. Alvarez escalated the case. A foundation board member had heard about the theft and approved emergency coverage before I even finished filling out the hardship forms. Mrs. Lennox brought another envelope anyway, with $40 and a note that said, "For popsicles." I cried over that envelope in the bathroom until Nurse Harper knocked and told me dehydration was not a strategy. Daniel was with us, fully with us, not hovering near his phone, not checking on Evelyn, not taking calls in hallways. He had blocked his mother's number after the parking lot confrontation and told Pastor Reed that any messages from her would be forwarded to Detective Monroe. It was a sentence I had waited our entire marriage to hear in some form. "My mother is not allowed to use you to reach me." Milo sensed the difference. He did not have language for it, but children feel when adults stop leaking panic. He held Daniel's thumb while the nurse checked his wristband. He let Daniel count ceiling tiles with him. When the anesthesiologist explained things in a cartoon voice Milo hated, Daniel gently interrupted. "Please speak plainly," he said. "He understands more than people think." I looked at my husband then. It is possible to be furious at someone and love them so much it hurts in the same breath. Marriage rarely gives you clean emotional categories. Daniel had failed us. Daniel was showing up. Both were true. Neither erased the other. Before they wheeled Milo back, he pressed the green car into my palm. "Keep," he said. One word. His voice small but clear. I closed my fingers around it and kissed his forehead. "I will keep it safe." Daniel bent down. "I'll be right here when you wake up, buddy." Milo looked at him for 3 full seconds. "Here," he said. Daniel's face broke. "Yes," he whispered. "Here." The doors opened. They took our son through. The waiting began. There is no version of waiting outside an operating room that makes you noble. I paced. I prayed badly. I drank coffee that tasted like burnt dust. Daniel sat with his elbows on his knees and did not once tell me to calm down. When my hands started shaking, he held them without speaking. At 11:42, Detective Monroe texted, "Evelyn Whitaker has been arrested." I stared at the message. Daniel read it over my shoulder. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then the surgical liaison appeared at the desk and called our name. My heart stopped so completely, I forgot Evelyn existed. The doctor smiled. "He did well," she said. Those 3 words rearranged the universe. Daniel made a sound I had never heard from him before, half sob, half laugh. I covered my face. Nurse Harper appeared from nowhere and put an arm around me. "He did well," the doctor repeated. Everything after that was detail. The arrest, the case, the money, the family. Milo did well. For that day, that was all the justice I could hold. When Milo woke, groggy and furious at the tape on his hand, he asked for water, then fox, then green. Daniel placed the green car beside him before I could move. Milo's eyes tracked from the car to his father. No smile, no dramatic recognition, just a small unclenching of his fingers. In our world, that was applause. The police report made our family sound cleaner than it was. Fraudulent transfer, forged receipt, misappropriation of charitable funds, tampering with patient documents, conspiracy. Such tidy phrases for such dirty things. There was no line item for the way Daniel had looked at me when the balance showed 0. No official code for church women turning their backs in grocery store aisles. No statute named after the feeling of holding your son before surgery while strangers wondered whether you had stolen the money meant to help him survive. Evelyn hired a lawyer who wore pocket squares and used the word misunderstanding until Detective Monroe played the hospital footage. Then he began using the word context. Context was that Evelyn had been under stress. Context was that she believed Bethany was in legal danger. Context was that she had always intended to replace the funds before anyone was harmed. The prosecutor, a woman named Dana Voss with a voice like closing a drawer, asked where Evelyn intended to get $28,000 in 72 hours. Evelyn did not answer. Bethany took a plea first. She admitted to her own workplace theft and to helping open the Sunflower account. Ryan Keller admitted to printing the receipt and taking the envelope from Evelyn at the hospital. He said Evelyn told him I was unstable and that the paperwork needed to be corrected before I made a scene. Everyone had a version in which I was the problem. That is how toxic families survive. They do not need everyone to believe the same lie. They only need everyone to accept the same target. Pastor Reed came to our house 2 weeks after Milo came home. He stood on the porch with a casserole and an apology that had clearly taken him 3 drafts. I should have stopped the basement meeting before it began, he said. Yes, I replied. He nodded. I let peace become more important than truth. Daniel stood beside me. His hand was not on my back. He had stopped touching me during apologies that were mine to receive. That small restraint mattered. Mrs. Lennox came the next day with popsicles and cried when Milo showed her his green car. She said she had never believed Evelyn completely, but she had been afraid to speak against a grandmother. People use titles like armor, I said. She nodded, ashamed. The online fundraiser platform restored part of the money after reviewing the fraud. The church created a repayment pool without asking us to attend. The foundation covered the surgery balance and recovery needs. Practical kindness arrived late, but it arrived. Evelyn's arrest photo circulated quietly through the same phone tree she had used to poison my name. I did not share it. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But revenge, that uses the same machinery as harm has a taste I do not trust. Instead, I wrote one public post. Milo is recovering. The missing funds are part of an active criminal case. We are grateful to those who helped and to those who waited for facts. Please do not contact our family for details. Daniel asked if I wanted to add anything about being falsely accused. I looked at him. No, I said. The people who need to know already know. The people who want a show can live without one. He nodded. Later that night, he found me folding Milo's hospital blanket in the laundry room. I believed silence would protect everyone, he said. I kept folding. It protected her. I know. This time, I believed he did. The statement did not heal the humiliation, but it corrected the record. That mattered more than I expected. There is a kind of pain that comes from being hurt, and another from being mislabeled while you bleed. Seeing my name attached to the truth did not make me whole. It made me visible again. Evelyn tried one final performance before the plea hearing. It came in the form of a letter, delivered by certified mail, because drama meant nothing to Evelyn if it did not leave a paper trail. Daniel opened it at the kitchen table while Milo watched cartoons in the living room, and I sliced strawberries into the only shape he accepted that week. The envelope contained 4 pages of looping handwriting and no apology. My dearest Daniel, not Grace, not Milo, Daniel. She wrote that mothers make mistakes from love. She wrote that Bethany's crisis had frightened her. She wrote that I had never understood the sacred bond between a mother and son. She wrote that if he allowed the courts to destroy her, Milo would grow up knowing his father had abandoned his grandmother. Daniel read silently. I watched his face, not because I distrusted him, but because trust after betrayal is not blindness. It is attention with hope. He folded the letter. Then he opened it again and read one sentence out loud. Grace will forgive you eventually, but your mother may not live long enough for regret to matter. He stared at the page. That's not love, he said. No, that's a leash. I put the knife down. Yes. He tore the letter in half, then in quarters, then smaller, until the pieces looked like confetti for a party no one wanted to attend. It would make a better story to say that was the moment everything healed. It was. Healing is less cinematic than people hope. Daniel still woke some nights from dreams where his mother was calling from another room. I still flinched when his phone buzzed. We still argued about boundaries, money, trust, whether his apology was becoming action or just better language. But the letter went into the trash. Not a drawer, not a folder to revisit. Trash. That mattered. The plea hearing was scheduled for October. Evelyn's lawyer argued for leniency because she was a grandmother, a widow, a respected community member, a woman under strain. Dana Voss argued that Evelyn had stolen from a child facing surgery, forged hospital documents, attempted to frame the child's mother, and endangered medical care for personal reasons. The judge looked at Evelyn over his glasses. Mrs. Whittaker, love does not explain this conduct. Control might. Evelyn's face went white. She pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for restitution and testimony against Ryan's related forgery work. Bethany received probation and restitution for her own case. Ryan served time. Evelyn avoided prison because of age, plea terms, and the recovery of funds, but she received house arrest, community service barred from handling charitable money, and a restitution order that required selling her condo. Daniel sat beside me during the hearing. When restitution was announced, Evelyn turned in her seat and looked at him. The old signal. Save me. For 38 years, that look had been a command. Daniel looked back. He did not move. Evelyn's face changed then in a way I will never forget. Not heartbreak, not grief, recognition. She understood that the son she had trained had learned a new language. Afterward, in the courthouse hallway, Daniel took my hand. I let him, not because everything was fixed, because he had kept it free to choose. That night, Daniel changed his voicemail greeting because Evelyn had been calling from unfamiliar numbers just to hear his voice. It was a small, strange boundary, but he did it himself. No discussion, no announcement. When I noticed, he only said, "She does not get pieces of me just because she knows where to look." Restitution required a donation list. That was how we ended up in a courthouse conference room on a rainy Tuesday with 3 binders, 2 lawyers, and the names of everyone who had tried to help our son. The prosecutor needed amounts. The court needed proof. The church needed to know what was owed to whom. I hated the list, not because it was inaccurate, because each name was a memory Evelyn had touched. Mrs. Lennox, $40 in cash, popsicle note. Union Local 422, coffee can collection, $1,688. Pancake breakfast, estimated cash after supplies, $3,209. Anna and Marcus, online transfer, $500. Kindergarten parents, pooled gift cards and cash, $613. Every line reminded me that theft is never only money. It is trust converted into evidence. Daniel read the names aloud while I checked them against my black binder. His voice broke twice. The first time on Mrs. Lennox. The second time on a donation from Milo's teacher, Ms. Patel, who had written, "For the bravest dinosaur expert I know." I reached for the binder. He shook his head. "I need to do it." So I let him. Across the table, Evelyn's lawyer looked bored until Dana Voss asked whether the court would consider barring Evelyn from church financial committees, school fundraisers, medical campaigns, and any role involving vulnerable persons, donations. The lawyer objected. The judge granted it anyway. Evelyn was not in the room for that administrative hearing, but I imagined her hearing the order later, not the restitution. She expected money to be negotiated, not the house arrest. She could turn confinement into martyrdom, but being told she could not be trusted with generosity, that would cut. Evelyn's power had always lived in being seen as the helper. The court took the costume. After the hearing, Pastor Reed asked permission to publish a church statement correcting the earlier rumors. I told him yes, but only if it named me clearly. Not the family, not confusion, not mistakes were made. My name. 2 days later, the statement went out. Grace Whittaker did not misuse, mishandle, or misplace funds donated for Milo Whittaker's medical care. Statements suggesting otherwise were false. The church apologizes for permitting speculation that harmed Grace and her family. I read it 3 times. Then I handed the phone to Daniel. He read it and closed his eyes. "I should have said it first," he said. "Yes, I'm sorry. I know." Milo was on the floor between us, pushing his green car through a tunnel made from empty tissue boxes. He did not know the word restitution. He did not know how close adults had come to failing him. He only knew that his parents were in the same room and nobody was shouting. He drove the car to Daniel's shoe and stopped. Daniel looked down. "Traffic," he asked softly. Milo glanced up. "Bridge," he said. One word. Daniel looked at me, eyes full. After months of money, lies, cameras, courtrooms, and shame, our son had chosen a better metaphor than any of us. Bridge. Not fixed, not forgotten. A way across. That word stayed with us. Bridge became the name for the work neither of us wanted but both of us owed Milo. When Daniel told the truth without defending himself, bridge. When I said I was angry instead of swallowing it, bridge. When Milo let us sit on opposite sides of his play mat and passed one car between us, bridge. Daniel apologized many times before I accepted one. That sounds cruel unless you have lived through the kind of apology that asks to be rewarded for existing. The first ones came too quickly, while fear was still steering him. "I'm sorry, but I didn't know. I'm sorry, but she's my mother. I'm sorry, but I was trying to keep the peace." Each but was a hand reaching for the door. The apology I accepted came 3 months after the operation, on a night when Milo had fallen asleep early and the house was finally quiet without feeling dangerous. Daniel came into the kitchen, carrying his laptop. "I made something," he said. "If a husband says that, after nearly losing his family, you learn not to assume romance." He opened a spreadsheet. It listed every therapy bill, every donation record, every call he had made to the prosecutor, the bank, the fundraiser platform, the hospital foundation. It listed repayment status. It listed boundaries. Evelyn blocked, Bethany limited contact, no unsupervised access to Milo, no family financial involvement, all medical accounts under dual approval. It listed what he had done, not what he intended. Then he opened a document. "I wrote down what I think I did," he said. I folded my arms, because part of me wanted to protect myself from any sentence that began with "I think." He read anyway. "I treated my wife's fear as an inconvenience because my mother's fear was louder. I let Grace become the family's shock absorber. I believed neutrality was fair when one person was lying and one person was protecting our son. I confused my discomfort with evidence. I made Grace stand alone at the exact moment she most needed a husband." His voice shook, but he kept reading. "I did not steal the money, but I helped create a house where the person who did steal it thought Grace would not be believed. That is on me." I sat down. He looked up. "I am not asking you to tell me it's okay," he said. "It is not okay. I am asking what repair looks like tomorrow, not forgiveness. Repair." That was the first apology that did not ask me to lift something for him. "Tomorrow," I said. He nodded. "You take Milo to his follow-up. You know the questions. You bring the folder. You do not call me from the parking lot, asking where things are. I already packed it. Show me." He did. The folder was complete. Not perfect. Daniel had put the insurance card behind the wrong tab, but he had packed it. He had tried before being asked. He had entered the labor instead of praising me for carrying it. I moved the card. He watched. "Blue tab," he said. "Blue tab." The next morning, he took Milo to the appointment. I stayed home and did not rescue him from uncertainty. He texted once, in waiting room, "He has Fox. Green car too." Then another 2 hours later. "Done. Doctor says healing looks good." Milo said bridge again when we passed construction. I sat on the kitchen floor and cried. Not because Daniel had become perfect, because he had become present. When they came home, Milo ran to me first. Then, halfway across the living room, he turned back and held out the green car to Daniel. "Keep," Milo said. Daniel took it like a sacrament. I watched my husband understand. Finally, that trust is not demanded by family title. It is placed in your hand. And then, you spend the rest of your life proving you know what you are holding. It took time for that meaning to settle. Daniel had thought trust was a feeling people gave you when they loved you. Now he understood it as custody. A small, breakable thing placed in your care. You do not deserve it because you are sorry. You deserve it only while you are protecting it. Milo came home on a Sunday afternoon in November, which is not medically accurate because he had technically been home for months. But that was the day the house became his again. Recovery had been slow and ordinary in the way miracles are often ordinary. Medication charts, sponge baths, follow-ups, sleepless nights that had nothing to do with theft and everything to do with healing. Popsicles from Mrs. Lennox, cards from kindergarten. Nurse Harper mailing him dinosaur stickers with a note that said, "Keep bossing the grown-ups around." The legal case settled into paperwork. Evelyn's condo sold. Restitution checks arrived in pieces. Some donors asked that their money go back to the hospital foundation. Some sent it to us for Milo's care. Mrs. Lennox refused repayment and said if I mailed her $1, she would never speak to me again. Bethany moved 2 towns over and wrote 1 letter I did not answer. Evelyn mailed birthday cards to Daniel for 3 months with no return address. He gave them to Detective Monroe until the order was modified to include third-party contact. When Evelyn complained to the court that her son had been turned against her, the judge reminded her that actions sometimes accomplish what daughters-in-law cannot. Daniel kept going to counseling. I went too, separately at first, then with him later. Not to save the marriage as if it were a sinking boat, and I owed everyone a performance of effort. I went because anger can keep you alive and still not be a place to live. I learned to say what I needed, without making it smaller first. Daniel learned to hear his mother's voice in his head and not obey it. Milo learned that the green car could stay in the living room overnight and still be there in the morning. That mattered most. On that Sunday, Daniel rebuilt the little wooden bridge in the backyard. It crossed nothing important, only the shallow drainage dip near the fence, but Milo loved it. Before the operation, he had driven cars across it for hours. During the chaos, the bridge had broken. 1 plank rotted through, and neither Daniel nor I had noticed until Milo stood in front of it one morning and said no. No meant many things in Milo's language. That day it meant this is not safe anymore. Daniel replaced every plank. He sanded the edges. He painted it green because Milo chose the color by placing his car on the paint can. He worked without making the repair a speech. No grand announcement. No asking me to admire him. Just hammer, measure, sand, paint, repeat. When it dried, Milo walked outside with the seriousness of an inspector. He crouched, touched the first plank, then the second. Then he placed the green car at one end and pushed it slowly across. The wheels bumped over the wood. Milo watched. Daniel held his breath. The car reached the other side. Milo picked it up, turned to Daniel, and placed it in his father's palm. Home, he said. 1 word. Daniel covered his face. I stood on the porch with both hands pressed to my mouth and let the word move through me. Home. Not the house Evelyn invaded with her lies. Not the place where people had whispered and accused and chosen peace over truth. Home as Milo meant it. The place where what you love remains where you left it. The place where bridges are repaired. The place where adults become safe by doing safe things again and again until a child believes them. Daniel looked at me over Milo's head. There was still grief between us. Still work. Still days when I remembered the waiting room camera and felt rage rise like weather. But there was also our son on a green bridge, offering trust in the only language he had. I stepped off the porch and joined them. No speeches. No perfect ending. Just 3 people in the cold November light, learning that justice is not only punishment. Sometimes justice is a child crossing a bridge his father finally fixed. Sometimes revenge is simply surviving the lie and refusing to become cruel. Sometimes the truth does not give you back what was stolen. It gives you the power to decide what will never be stolen again. In the months that followed, people kept asking whether I had forgiven Evelyn. They asked quietly, usually after church, as if forgiveness were a curtain I could close over the whole stage so everyone could stop feeling uncomfortable. I told them the truth. I hoped one day to be free of her. That was not the same as inviting her back. Daniel never asked me to. That became one of the repairs. He did not translate my boundaries into bitterness. He did not ask Milo for photos to send her. He did not say, she is still his grandmother. He learned that a title can describe biology without granting access. The final restitution check arrived on a Friday. I deposited it into a new account under 2 signatures, and a password Evelyn could never guess because it was not a birthday, a Bible verse, or any family name. It was a sentence Milo had said during recovery when Daniel asked where the green car belonged. Safe here.